Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is our Ekos Tips and Tricks webinar on system tags and taxes directly in Ekos. My name is Taryn. I'm from the Ekos Customer Success team and I'm going to be leading us through today's webinar content. Today's webinar is going to be focused directly within Ekos. So if you are a Ekos user, you'll be able to follow along right within your Ekos instance. However, if you are not an Ekos user, you'll get a great inside look at how Ekos can help you support your taxes more efficiently. So before we get started, a couple of things to note. Ekos cannot legally provide advice on how system tags should be applied to work in progress items or ingredients, which we will talk through today. This webinar is simply meant to review why Ekos uses tags, where you can apply them, and breaks down each tag type. Please contact your TTB representative if you have questions on how to appropriately classify your products as we move throughout the webinar today. Now, right now we are currently in an Ekos instance. For all of you Ekos users, one thing I want to point out to you is our Ekos knowledge base. You can always access the Ekos knowledge base by clicking the question mark on the top right-hand corner of your screen. You'll be prompted to be brought directly into our knowledge base, as you can see here. One thing I want to point out is we have a management and taxes category found here on the knowledge base homepage, in which you'll find a number of articles as well as step-by-step instructions and information on all of the processes that we're going to talk to today relevant to completing your TTB forms in Ekos. Be sure to navigate to this section of the knowledge base and either follow along or check this information out at a later date following the webinar. Today's webinar will go through a couple of things here. We're going to talk about what are system tags, why do we use them, where to apply these tags, what are the different types of system tags, how to generate, post BROP and report of wine premise operations reports. And then we're going to end with a couple of prepared frequently asked questions that I think will help maybe prompt some additional questions that you may have and or answer some of those that you have already thought of. If you have any questions as I'm going through the webinar content, please feel free to submit that to the Q&A section of Zoom. I will not be kind of stopping throughout the webinar, but we will definitely have time at the end to go through some question and answer discussion. First things first, what are system tags? System tags are used for generating data on the brewer's report of operations report or the report of wine premise operations report. System tags are applied to WIP items, production sequences, and or materials such as raw materials and ingredients, depending on your processes. If you want to generate TTB forms or these tax forms in Ekos, you must utilize system tags. Now, why did Ekos decide on using system tags? The process of producing beer, especially mead, cider, wine, can transition through multiple tax classification, which causes producers to pay different amounts for products that are quite similar. By using these tags, it allows you to define when products change tax classifications with more flexibility and allow Ekos to track changes during production. So let's jump into the options of where to apply these tags. Now, again, I'm just going to kind of preface this with the fact that we legally can't say where tags should be applied, and I'm going to show where and how they can be applied. First things first, I'm going to navigate to my product class by clicking on the double arrows tab here. From the double arrows tab, I'm going to scroll down to manage lists. And from this subset of list options here, I'm going to choose product class. Note that product class is going to be a familiar area of Ekos for you as it operates a lot of the functionality for production purposes in the system. Now you'll see in my demonstration site here that I have a number of product classes for all of the different types of volumes or products or finished good items that I could potentially create at my facility. More likely than not, you're going to have one, two, or maybe a couple of these product classes. We're going to start with the beer product class here. When you're navigating to a product class, the most important aspect for taxes is going to be the production sequence section here. If you apply system tags to production sequences, they're going to apply to all of the products associated to the product class, which can be found down below here in the product section. Scrolling back up to the production sequence, we're going to go ahead and select a production sequence by clicking View. Now I'll go ahead and select Edit here and see that we have an item tag section. Note there is already what seems to be an item tag applied to my Bright Whip production sequence, and I have the ability to click the magnifying glass here. This item tag section here is going to pull up all of the applicable tax classification tags that can be applied. Note that each WIP item can have 0 to 1 tax classification and is most commonly utilized for the report of wine premise operations report. Here we have artificially carbonated wine. This is going to represent product produced by the fermentation. Then we have grape wine here, low alcohol. This is going to be oftentimes paired with the ferment tag to report into column A. Similarly, we have not over 16%, which is going to be paired with the fermented tag to report in column A, as well as over 16 to 21% and over 21 to 24%. Sorry, officially carbonated wine there is going to be paired with the fermented tag and report into column D. Sparkling wine, bottle fermented, is going to be paired with the fermented tag to report into column E. Think champagne. This is going to represent product that is over a certain threshold of CO2 and has been naturally carbonated inside of a bottle. Whereas we have sparkling wine bulk process, which is going to be paired with the fermented tag to report into column E. Still maybe thinking champagne here. This is going to represent a product that is over a certain threshold of CO2 and has naturally been carbonated inside of a enclosed tank there. I think I skipped over hard cider up at the top there. That one is going to be paired with a fermented tag to report into column F, where this represents a product that is under a certain CO2 threshold and is within the ABV requirements set by the TTB produced either by apple or pear with no other additional fruits like peaches or anything else. Production tags, as we see down below, we have one that is selected. This is again applied to WIP items only. However, each WIP item can have 0 to many production tags and are typically used in not only TTB reports for the report of wine premise operations, but for the brewer's report of operations as well. So here we have fermentable, fermented, and sweetened. Now, fermentable is going to be used to report pre-fermentation volume in tanks if needed. This is commonly applied to juice whip, could be honey whip, or wort or green for beer product classes. Fermented is going to be used to report any fermented material in the facility and added to any whip items that should be considered fermented. So this is going to commonly be seen on fermented whip, fruited, and or finished whip for anything being reported on for the report of wine premise operations report. And we'll see it here listed on Bright Whip for the brewer's report of operations. We also have the sweeten tag here, which is used to report material that has been sweetened during production. This is commonly applied, however, at the individual product WIP level, as not all products are sweetened. So we are going to touch on how this may be applied to a single WIP item in a moment here. And this, again, is going to be utilized for the report of wine premise operations report. So as we've gone through all of the potential item tags that can be applied to your WIP items in your production sequence, a couple of takeaways here. Tax classification and production tags, most likely the fermentable and sweetened, are all going to be relative for the report of wine premise operations report, or the 702, whereas the fermented tag, not only applicable for the 702, but that's going to be the big one there for you beer producers needing to report for your brewer's report of operations. So I'm just going to go ahead and click apply to keep that fermented tag on my Bright Whip. And note, once you make any edits as needed, you'll simply click save. You'll always be able to see those item tags at the production sequence level by viewing each production sequence as needed. As mentioned, these item tags will be associated to all of the WIP items for this product, which we can look into. For example, if I scroll down into one of my products here, let's take a look at my Queen City Sour and navigate to my WIP items. I can click on my Bright Whip here and see that item tag listed appropriately. So with that being said, let's talk about how to apply single WIP items, or how to apply item tags to a single WIP item. Similarly to the navigation that we just went through the product class, we can, however, do this directly from the home screen. So let's go ahead and close out of this navigation string that we have up at the top here and come back to the home page. Now, for this example, we're going to talk about a sweetened production tag. So I'm going to navigate to my products here, and I'm going to scroll through to one of my cider products for this example. So once you've navigated to your product profile, you'll want to click on the WIP items here. Now, as mentioned, any WIP items that were associated to my cider product class production sequence level will also be applied here. However, for specific tags like sugar, for sweetened, that need to be applied to only a couple of products, we'll navigate to that here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my fermented WIP item, navigate to my edit button here, and associate the appropriate item tags. Here we'll see that same list pop up, and I'm going to go ahead and apply sweetened. Now when I save, this is not going to affect any other fermented WIP item across any other products of my cider product class. Navigating out of my product here, back to my Ekos home page. So we've talked about some tax classification as well as production tags, but what about material tags? These are going to be applied to actual items or ingredients in Ekos. Material tags will be used for these ingredient items that are needed most importantly for cider and wine. So each item here can have 0 to many material tags. And again, as mentioned, only going to be applicable for the report of wine premise operations report. So from my items page up at the top here, I'm going to go ahead and search for an item. Let's look at my sugar item today. So similar to the top section of my WIP item, we'll see we have an item tag section here. Let's go ahead and click Edit. And we'll click the magnifying glass here. This is going to pull up a different set of lists, if you will. So we have some material type tags. We have apple, other fermentable, pear, wine spirits. We have grape. We have concentrate, juice, field crushed, uncrushed. And then we have sugar, either dry or liquid sugar. Now, some of these like apple, pear, wine spirits, grape juice, grape concentrate, field crushed, uncrushed, and our sugar items are going to be used to track materials for part 4 of the report of wine premise operations report. Other fermentables is going to be used on items that must be added as an additional column on part 4 because they're a bulk source of potential fermentation and do not have dedicated material tags. For example, I'm trying to think of a good one here, commonly maybe applied to other fruit juices or concentrates or potentially honey. Note, bulk fermented down below is going to be used for ingredients that's needed to be reported on for any volume that's received in bond. So we typically see this with bulk wine. Maybe if I'm thinking about this for the brewer's report of operation, this is going to be volume of bright beer received potentially from another brewery. Or if you have multiple breweries set up in Ekos, it could account for the movement between the two that will cause a value here on your report of, or on your BROP. So you do not necessarily need to apply this bulk fermented tag. So this is most commonly going to be used for that bulk wine scenario as mentioned previously. So for my sugar item, as we're currently populated here, I'm going to go ahead and identify this as dry sugar and click apply to make that change. Great. Closing out here, now that we have talked a little bit about the setup aspects of ensuring your system tags are aligned appropriately with your production sequences, your potentially single whip items that need to be outliers from your typical production sequences, and then the application of material tags for those ingredients and raw materials. Let's actually talk about how to generate the TTB forms in Ekos. So we're going to start with the double arrows tab, and we're going to scroll all the way down to our section called TTB reporting. So a couple of things to note: when you click into your TTB reporting link, you will see any previously created TTB forms. Now these can be in a editable status or they can be in a posted status. Right now, all of the examples in my site here are in a posted status, meaning I can no longer edit them. These are also going to be listed here in sequential order, starting from the furthest, or can't find the words I'm looking for, the most frequent or most recent is going to be listed at the bottom. To create a new TTB report, you'll simply click the Create button here. Let's actually create and generate a BROP report today. So we're going to start at the facility level here. Now, I only have one facility, and then we'll select the report type. Now, we have BROP monthly, BROP quarterly, and if we selected the report of wine premise operations report, we would get an option to report on this annually as well as quarterly and monthly. We're going to go ahead and complete a BROP monthly report here. Now it's pre-populating the year as well as the report frequency based on the report type that I've selected, and it gives the ability to select the appropriate month. For today, let's go ahead and generate March. The status will be pre-populated, and then we can go ahead and add in any remarks if I'd like to. Any notes, anything that I'd like to be included on this generated report. And I'll click Save. So here we have our open TTB report, as you can see here by the status. Now, we don't have a file yet. That will come. Just keep that in mind. And we have our remarks section. Everything else here has been pre-populated based on those settings we've just moved forward on. Now, as we look and scroll down in our TTB form here, note you can always export data directly out of the TTB report. A couple of other things to note as we are looking and viewing at our TTB form here. We can scroll through all of the different columns and cells within the TTB report. One thing to note as you're going through is that some of these cells are going to change to be orange. If you click into an orange cell here, the fact that it's orange is signifying that it is a drillable or it is a drill capable field, meaning if I click in, it's going to break down all of the transactions that equated to the total that I've just selected within that cell. I can always export the actual list of those individualized transactions as well if I need to. Now, one tip is to think about generating your TTB reports at the beginning of a period, as a TTB form that's in open status is going to still be editable, and it's going to be somewhat maybe interactive, if you will, meaning the numbers will change throughout. So as you enter additional transactions, maybe it's batches, your produced by fermentation number is going to change. With the drill capable cells, like that produced by fermentation option that we just looked at, you'll have an opportunity to drill in and troubleshoot any potential discrepancies prior to the tax period ending. This is going to give you greater transparency into the daily processes of your facility, as you'll be able to, again, click into all of these and see all of those transactions accordingly. With all of the transaction information, you'll always get the reason as well as the record number or value in reference to that reason, in which you can go and search through the system further. Now, once you are ready to actually generate that report, we'll go ahead and click the Generate Report option button here. When we generate the report, this is automatically going to fill in all of those values into our file. Let's go ahead and click that to view what that looks like. So here we can see our monthly BROP report, as well as all of the values taken directly out of Ekos filled within that report here. So scrolling through, you can see all of the sections that Ekos does support directly from your Ekos instance. Now, again, as I have backdated this to March, if I were doing this for April, it would be recommended to wait to generate this report until you're at the end of the reporting period. Again, just to account for any changes in values throughout maybe the last couple of days prior to the ending of that reporting period. Now, keep in mind, we do have an article specific to the Brewer's Report of Operations monthly and quarterly, as well as the Report of Wine Premise Operations report that specifically goes on a line-by-line basis, explaining all of the lines that Ekos supports and how the data in Ekos is going to generate values in each of those line items. Now, once you have reviewed your report and the PDF has been generated, you'll want to go ahead and post the record. We'll go ahead and click Post up at the top here to change that status from open to posted. Now, it's also recommended to create a closing period to protect the data from being altered. Closing periods most commonly are going to align with reporting periods and or accounting periods. Again, this is going to ensure that the numbers that appear on the PDF are matching the numbers displayed in the drill capable reports as we see here. As a reference, going back to my double arrows tab up at the top, those closing periods can be set directly through here. Now, as we have reviewed a monthly BROP report, I'm going to come back to my TTB section here. We're just going to view a pre-populated report that I already have posted in the system. So here we are looking at a BROP quarterly report for the quarter of January through March in my Ekos instance here. Now, again, we can still hover over all of these and see what is drill capable and what is not. Even though this is in a posted status, I can still go ahead and drill in to see each of those transactions as needed. I do already have that form pulled up here. We have our quarterly form relevant to January to March here. You can see how that differs a little bit. But again, this is pulling those values directly from our Ekos instance. And I'm going to close out here. Now, for all of you who are cider producers or maybe winemakers, I don't have that directly within this instance. I'm going to hop over to a different Ekos instance here and just view a report of wine premise operations report that we have generated in an open status in a different scenario here. So same scenario as far as how to create the report. You saw once I click create from the TTB reporting section, you'd fill out your facility, you'd fill out your report type and frequency accordingly, as well as the appropriate period or time frame. Once you save and move forward, you'll see the following form here. Now, this is going to act as the same functionality, meaning we can hover, we can drill, we can export different sections. You'll see that Ekos supports part 1, part 4, and part 7 of the Report of Wine Premise Operations report. And again, those line items are broken out in a knowledge base article found directly through the question mark icon on any Ekos screen. So if we want to go ahead and click in to view our generated PDF here, we can go ahead and open that. And here you'll see that Report of Wine Premise Operations report with the ability for Ekos to fill in these values for you. All right, so let's jump back over to my Ekos instance and go to the home page. So now that we've talked on where to access your TTB reports, how to create, generate, and post those reports, let's go through some of our frequently asked questions or pre-populated questions and answers that I have set up for you. So the first one is going to be, can customers outside of America generate their taxes? The answer, Ekos does not currently support or generate tax forms for customers outside of America or for any products other than beer, wine, and cider. However, you can leverage system tags in Ekos and utilize the data given in the reports if you wish and if it does actually help with your taxes. Some additional questions here. When is Ekos going to support Canadian or international taxes? We are working on a tool that will make generating this information easier. If you would like to assist in the research of this tool, feel free to reach out to success@ekos.com and we'll ensure that that information gets passed over to the appropriate folks here on our team. And we'll see if we can help you build out any customized reports as needed. Next question, what happens when I change my tags? If you make any changes to any of the production sequence tags, WIP items, or material tags, this will update all previously generated reports to use this new tag information. So the addition or removal of tags is in fact a retroactive action, meaning if you started with Ekos in January and added tags in December, you would actually be able to report on those tags for the whole year if you needed to. Next question, are TTB reports customizable in Ekos to match my specific requirements? At this time, the TTB reports are not customizable. The fields that are provided in Ekos are the fields on the tax reports and cannot be adjusted at this time. If you have a specific process that must be reported on, you'll want to leverage other reports to gather that data. If you're unaware or unfamiliar of available reports, you'll want to click on the Reports tab at the top of the screen here, and you'll see as a management user or a management security profile that we're currently in right now, you'll see a number of different report categories, and maybe some of these would be helpful depending on your needs. So who do you reach out to when you have questions or encounter an issue with your TTB reporting? you'll want to reach out to our support team at help@ekos.com. We'll be happy to help with any questions that you have and provide guidance as much as we can. So that concludes the end of today's webinar content. Looks like we have some questions that are popping up here in our Zoom questions and answers. I'm going to go ahead and go on mute, look over those questions, and get back to you in a few seconds with those answers. Okay, so we have a couple of questions here, somewhat similar, so I'm going to read both of those. First one, are there state-specific excise tax forms that can be auto-populated from our Ekos instance in addition to the TTB form? The answer to that question is we do have the ability to generate excise tax forms, but they are not going to be state-specific. They are at a federal level. With that, the question here, do we need to add tax classification tags to beers that are high ABV for states that have increased taxation for beers over a specific ABV level? So the answer similarly there is going to be no, you do not need to add those tax classification tags because Ekos does not support state-specific excise taxes. We do have the ability to generate those at a federal level. At the double arrows tab here, you will see an excise tax section. Excise taxes can be generated and reported on directly by clicking the Create button. Note, as you generate excise taxes, you will want to associate an appropriate tax authority, which can be selected here and created again through the double arrows tab. We do not have any other pre-populated questions in our Q&A section. This time is open and available for additional questions, so feel free to submit any that you have at this time. So we don't have any incoming questions. So I do want to reiterate again, please feel free to access our knowledge base, which can be found through the question mark. Navigate to the management and taxes section where you'll find a category all about TTB reporting. This does also include an article about excise taxes as well if you have additional questions on that. Thank you all for attending. If you do have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to the support team at help@goekos.com and we would be happy to help. I'm going to go ahead and close out today's webinar, but thank you all for attending again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.